Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of NurseCast. So, today we're going to be talking about Nurse Joppy and how that incorporates or at least sheds light on what it looks like to be a nurse, to be an African American nurse in this day and age. So, Nurse Joppy used to work at the medical center of Aurora, and back in 2019 was wrongfully accused of being the cause of death for a patient. A federal jury, after thorough investigation, deemed that that accusation was actually a direct result of racial discrimination and retaliation. In a nutshell, she was blamed for this death because she was black. So, in a typical case, there are a number of things that go into figuring out why a patient passed away. It is not supposed to immediately be it's the nurse's fault. If that were the case, then there would be significantly less nurses. There's a reason why people come to the hospital. Sometimes it's really, truly, realistically speaking, not that big of a deal. It's mostly fear and anxiety. Other times, it is a big deal and people don't realize it's a big deal, and they end up learning while being in the hospital, you almost met your maker. And in other cases, they know it's a big deal and they know they waited a long time. Unfortunately, they may be dealing with other things such as depression, and they may have wanted to meet their maker. These are just a small fraction of reasons why people end up in the hospital. But the point that I'm trying to make is it's not supposed to be strange to hear that a patient passed away. In the hospital, unfortunately, patients do die, and it shouldn't be a what when you hear it. Individual cases, yes, there should be a surprise factor if someone came in there for a sore throat. But again, that does happen. If someone comes in for a stubbed toe and they end up experiencing some other symptoms that have nothing to do with that toe, being in the hospital, we're not going to ignore it. And unfortunately, coming in for a stubbed toe could lead to discovering that you have end stage cancer of the whatever, and it has spread, and you're on your way out. The point that I'm trying to make is, in the hospital, strange things happen. New discoveries are made, and patients do pass. Because there are too many reasons for that to take place and so many considerable factors, it is preposterous to immediately say, it's the nurse's fault. You understand what I'm saying? So in this particular case, after 6 years, because this has been going on since 2019 with Nurse Joppy, she was an ICU nurse. And another thing, the ICU, patients are in even more critical condition. The intensive care unit. They are sicker. You're not going to put an ICU patient on the medical surgical floor. If they are that sick and they belong in the ICU, that's where they're going to be. Unfortunately, and this is not meant to be funny. This is not meant to try to be, I don't know what the right thing to say is, witty. In all seriousness, if you are in the ICU, your chances of passing are unfortunately higher than if you were on a lower acuity floor because you are sicker. Your organs are fighting harder. You are walking a thinner line. Not every case is the same. Generally speaking, ICU patients are sicker. You hear more codes in the ICU than you do on a med-surg floor. So again, for the assumption to immediately be it's the nurse's fault is preposterous. Now, there are other cases where you do see a nurse acting belligerently or strangely or out of pocket. Even in those cases, it is not first assumed that it is the nurse's fault. There is a process And based on the information that I have gathered from this case, it seems that the medical center of Aurora did not go through that process. And that is why, after the investigation, the federal jury said this took place because of racial discrimination and retaliation. I said all of that to say that unfortunately, African American nurses are in positions where they have to prove themselves. Saying that you are a nurse is not enough when you are a black nurse. You have to somehow outshine your Caucasian counterparts. And I know that that sounds crazy, but I'm being completely transparent. I posted a story here on YouTube. It was a short where I just gave a little snippet of a situation which happened to me so frequently. But this one stood out, where I walked into a patient's room after a doctor asked for me. The patient specifically said, after seeing me walk in, because the doctor's back was turned to the door, the patient said, "There she is, there's my nurse." And he turns around and sees me and he's like, "No, no, no. I want the nurse." Now I understand that patients who don't have any experience with healthcare, they see somebody else in scrubs and they're immediately like, the nurse. The physical therapist will walk in and they'll be like, "Oh, that one nurse." You know what I'm saying? The CNA will walk in and they'll be like, "That one nurse." I understand. So the doctor immediately assumed that she didn't know what she was talking about. And it wasn't because of the knowledge that healthcare personnel, or all of them, are clumped into one from the outside looking in, and that's nurse or doctor. No, this took place because that doctor saw me and could not fathom the idea that it was me, an African American, that was the nurse. These things take place on a consistent basis. This gentleman, the doctor, had the audacity to look around for heaven only knows what. He was just in disbelief. It is an issue. It does take place. That's only one component of being black and a nurse. There are patients that will see you, see that you are black, and say, "I would like another nurse." I don't know if you guys caught another one of my shorts where I was caring for a patient. I was covering for a nurse who had went on her break. And this patient seemed to have a massive amount of anxiety, and was so concerned that she wasn't going to make it. But when the nurse that was caring for her came back, that nurse was Caucasian, I am black. All of that anxiety went away. She was no longer nervous. She was no longer worried about dying. That is what I mean when I say that black nurses have a different set of job descriptions. There's the standard nurse job description. You understand? Standard. You have to appropriately care for the patient. You have to monitor the patient's labs, monitor the patient's symptoms, make sure that if there are any changes, the doctor is aware. You know what to do to manage the patient should anything change. Standard. Standard. For black nurses, it's please master the art of proving yourself, because people will see your skin before they see your skill. What do I mean by that? Of course they're going to see your skin before they see your skill. You know what I'm trying to say. They're going to make assumptions before they allow you to even say who you are, before they just take your word for it. I'm not saying that people should be out here just trusting people all willy-nilly, but again, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about. Healthcare is a very interesting place all by itself without the race component. So we've got all the interesting components with the added race component. I remembered doing this program. I was in high school, and I think the program was called Echo. experiencing care or something, health organizations, whatever. What it meant was high school students had the opportunity to shadow nurses and go into the actual specialty that they'd like to go into. So there would be dialysis, there would be NICU, ICU, there'd be trauma, ER, there'd be OB, L&D, OB, L&D, same thing, postpartum. So I had done that. I had looked into that, and I was a part of that program. I believe I was 16 or 17 at the time, and I loved it because I knew for sure at that time that I wanted to go into LND, labor and delivery. I wanted to care for the babies. I wanted to care for the new moms. I wanted to care for the seasoned moms. I wanted to be there. And I remembered one nurse who had been a nurse for maybe 3 or 4 years, and her little sister was becoming a nurse. And I remembered her telling her little sister, please make sure that you dress nicely. And her sister was like, what are you talking about? Why would you even tell me that? Like, I know how to dress. I'll be wearing scrubs. Why would you even say that to me? Her sister immediately took offense. And she was like, no, people treat you better when you look better. People treat you better when you look a certain way. This is outside of coming to work looking professional. No, this is her saying, put some eyeliner on, put some lip gloss on, put a little bit of concealer on, put some effort into your hair. Yes, I know you're going to work, you're not going out, but people treat you better when you look a certain way. The same goes, unfortunately, for the color of your skin. And so for Black people, we have to keep that in consideration and then some. We have to change our tone. An African American's tone of voice is naturally deeper, male and female. Yes, there are exceptions. Yes, there are African American individuals that have softer tones. You know what I'm saying? But generally speaking, I'm not speaking for every single individual in the world, please. Generally speaking, the tone is deeper. And so in some cases, when we're simply having a conversation and we're saying something that we think is funny, it's seen as aggressive, simply because of the natural deeper tone. We have to keep that in mind, because we end up being accused of things that have absolutely nothing but what we were actually doing or what our intent actually was. The things that we have to keep in mind, it's different, it's additional, it's an added job description. It's always happening. Code switching, it's funny for a lot of people, but we've mastered the art of it. So, as you all know, I have written 2 graphic novels. The intent, the goal is to shift gears and work my way out of healthcare. Not 100%, because I did work incredibly hard to get here, but just to the point where I can flip-flop a little bit, where I can make nursing sort of a side job and the graphic novel writing and animation or animated movie writing a full-time component. I would love your assistance if I could just have you guys click the link below in the caption to donate to the campaign to help turn the teaser that we've created into a full animated movie. I would truly appreciate that. Truly, truly, truly. So thank you guys so much for joining this episode. Thank you guys so much for leaving your comments and sharing how you feel. Continue to buy the comic books or the graphic novels. Continue to take a look at the progress of the teaser. We've got more coming your way, and I'm super excited about it. Follow me on all my other platforms. Thanks, guys.